Emerson, I'm actually really excited about today's podcast because kind of giddy a little bit giddy, I should say, because of a conversation we had beforehand. So I'm this season 2 of my podcast, I've been doing a little bit of hard hitting questions. So I'm going to start at the top with a hard hitting question, and it's I'm going to say, would you rather be on land or in the water?
Whoa, man. I mean, this is heavy. To start like this, to come at me with something that requires such a deep analytical perspective of my wants, needs, desires, having read Old Man on the Sea and all that, like, I don't know. I haven't read Hemingway lately. I don't know. Is there a deeper meaning to that? Because the answer is pretty easy.
It's just a deeper meaning.
No, man. Land.
It's interesting because, when I do my research on you, I do a little digging, a little stalking, you surf, right?
I do surf.
Right.
I do surf. It's actually a surfing hat.
Dude, so listen, the army, like you've been in the army. I had no idea that you were in the army and aerospace engineer. Like it's like an onion, layer after layer. You think you know somebody, and then it's like, wow, okay. Those things, they seem so. What's good? What's good about it?
Well, I mean, I think it's good for humans to try to be onions. I think if you can wrap up your life in 2 or 3 sentences, you probably lived a pretty dull life.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, listen, there's some great sentences in there. I mean, what's a good sentence? I raise thoughtful, kind, productive human beings. All right, get away with that one.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I save the planet from a zombie invasion. Okay. Yes. That's all you need on that one. But when it's like, I don't know, just if it's life is big, dude. There's a lot of things to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Those things seem so different, I should say, than acting when I was thinking about it, army and aerospace engineer. I'm sure it does. I'm sure you see the similarities there, but I was kind of like,
sure.
How did he get from here to here to here? And I'm just, how did we get there? Tell me that story.
I mean, to be brief about it, it's like a long story, but I mean, sort of, but I'll keep it short. I was in the military, and super amazing, awesome experience. It's sort of a mixed story. I went to a military college, as well. Along the line, I got injured. And after that injury, I went on to work at Lockheed Martin as an engineer. During that time, I discovered acting, and I really enjoyed it. And it started to take up a lot of my time and energy. And I'm like, well, if I'm willing to invest this much of myself into it, well, why don't I see if I can really do it? And I have sometimes maybe self-defeating sense of self-confidence. Sometimes I'm like, so I'm going to leave this 6-figure career and I'm going to move across the country. I'm going to go to Los Angeles and just be an actor and see if it works out. If it doesn't, I'm just going to come back and be like, you, man, give me my 6-figure job back that I just left to go play. And everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
For better or worse. So I ended up in Los Angeles to give it a shot, and I just never left.
Never left. Yeah. I feel like we definitely missed some milestones in there. I mean, especially, about there has to be a New York piece of this where you did All My Children, right? So there has to be some piece before you came out to Los Angeles. And I don't know if you know this, but I have an obsession with All My Children and One Life to Live. Like,
no, I didn't know that. Did you know, I'm going to add a little tidbit to your obsession, that the last 2 years of All My Children were filmed in Los Angeles?
I did know that. I did know that. I did
so that's
know
where
that.
I was. Yeah,
I did know
that's
that.
where
You're
I
right.
was
When they left. Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
When they started paring down the soaps in general. So I was not in New York. I have not been into New York since since the summer of 2002.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a great experience. I got to work with
Image
Susan
award
Lucci all the time.
I did. Image award for that.
Yes, that and $1.50 might give me a bus ticket to Santa Monica. That's about how much.
We know it's not about that, but you know what I mean? Like if anybody out there listening, you know, my obsession with All My Children, One Life to Live, all of the soaps and stuff like that was when I was a kid. That and I have to babysit my brother and sister. I used to have to watch cartoons in the morning with them, and then we go into the news, and then after lunch it would be all My Children, One Life to Live, General Hospital. And so when I was starting acting, when I was just before even getting in that world, I used to watch these block of soaps because I had to stay at home with my brother and sister who were 10 years younger than me. So this was my world. So I grew up wanting to be on one of those three shows, you know. And so when I was thinking, I was doing research on you, I was like, he was on All My Children, which is just amazing, you know.
It was,
it
was a pretty hefty experience for me. I mean, you get there as an actor, and I hadn't done anything. I'd worked on network level stuff, but I hadn't done anything of that size where I was going to come in and do like 20 episodes or something like that. And I knew that going in, I was going to do at least 10. And it was going to be a major storyline with Susan Lucci, who's just one of the all-time great soap actors. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. Then I told my mom about it. And mom's like, oh man, she's going to hate that set. She's like, I've been watching All My Children since it was in black and white. And it was an amazing thing because since it was the final season, during one of my episodes, it showed a flashback year after year, starting back when Susan Lucci was just like a teenage girl on the show. And it was in black and white when my mom started watching, because my mom was like a teenage girl with her. And so she grew up with Susan Lucci. And now her son, who she's extremely and unreasonably proud of for some reason, is now on her TV with Susan Lucci on this show that she grew up watching. That's where the real value of it came in for me. That was pretty amazing. Yeah.
Isn't it like a small tangent here, but isn't it kind of interesting how we can do stuff that like we think is such great caliber? Like we're like, I did, you know, something with Steven Spielberg or Marvel. And they're like, that's cool. And then I did an episode of General Hospital. They're like, you have made it.
Yeah, exactly. The things people place value on. It can be surprising sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely.
It's just very interesting because they're like, oh, so you're still doing the acting thing. You're like, wait a minute. There's a whole
right.
You know, one of the other reasons I really wanted to have you on the podcast, because we had this beautiful conversation about let me set this up for everybody. Emerson and I used to, I want to say we'll just put a decade on it, right? Let's just put a decade on it. Well, it has to be a decade because I was on Bosch for 8 years, right? So, and then we used to see each other in the audition waiting room often, like all the time.
All the time.
Right. It was whether it's commercial, I want to say, or theatrical. I feel like we always kind of saw each other and never really back a decade ago, you know, I mean, you know, pleasantries, hi, all that stuff.
Sure.
But we never really conversed, never really had a conversation. And I think that was, you know, I think it's the reason why I wanted to have you on, because I think it's so interesting, the journey of where we are now, right?
Right.
You know, where I'm like, come over to my house, man. Like, you know, or you're like, you're talking and stuff like that. But you remember the waiting room. I guess I just want to take us back to that waiting room, because I think the industry sets us up to be, I don't want to say enemies. That's such a deep word, but to be, what's the word I want to use, Emerson? I think not us, but like everybody, it sets us up to be in the waiting room, to be adversaries, right?
I mean, listen, it's a slight, let me see. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think by nature, you're going in to a room and you're all going to walk in and one of you are going to walk out with this job, and it's going to be significant. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be potentially something that could change the financial fortunes easily of your month, possibly of your year. And depending on, you know, what kind of project it is, it could change the fortunes of your life.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, no joke, like professionally, financially, personally, depending on what it is. You walk in for a show, you come out having booked it, that changes everything. Okay.
Yeah.
That changes, as you well know. So it's easy to go in there thinking these people are my competition.
Competition.
I mean,
that's the word I want to use. That's
technically speaking, when you see someone as competition, it can become adversarial because, well, if they win, I lose. And I think that's where we get it wrong. If someone else wins, that you lose. That's a mistake that I made for many, many years. And maybe it's what I needed at the time to motivate me to think, as I'm sitting there, and that's what I used to say to myself, and I'd say to anybody that I'd work with, when we get like some audition side, some copy, I'm like, listen, and I believe this to this day, but it's a different value I place on it. I'm like, listen, there's somebody out there, you got this, and you have dinner tonight with your friends, and it's not due for a couple of days before you got to go in and read or tape it or whatever. And you're going to push it off a little and work on it later. That's cool. But there's somebody who's starting on this right now. There's someone who's sitting down, reading it, you know, going through, making sure they understand all the terminology, making sure they understand who's involved with the project, who's producing this, what kind of tone is it going to have, who's the lead actor in the scene I'm with, or who's the other actor in the scene I'm with. Man, let me take some time to think about their lines because I got all this time with it. And I got to start going through and thinking about my character. What do I want? What do I need? What am I trying to achieve here? And then on a broader scale, what's the purpose of being here? You know, from a dramaturgy, you know, standpoint, sometimes actors get like, what does my character need? Now, what does the show need from your character also? Let's not, you know what I'm saying? Let's not forget that's part of it. Like your character may need to be on the floor wallowing and crying, but that from a cinematic perspective, that's useless. Someone's going to be doing that from the beginning, and they're going to walk into that room or turn on that camera and record it, and they're just going to be knowing what they want to achieve, knowing what they want to communicate, and you're going to be like, ooh, I sort of know what I want, but I had a great dinner with my friends the other night, so it's fine. That person's probably going to get the job. If not this time, because there's so many things that go into booking an acting job. I mean, I could go in and wear my hat like that versus my hat like this, and that can make all the difference. No joke. But that person, over time, the results are going to work in their favor because they decided to treat it as if it was the most important thing, which I feel it is in a way, you know what I'm saying? Or one of the most important things. I think anything you do in your life needs to be, in some ways, the most important thing.
Wait, are you saying that I didn't do my job in these waiting rooms? Is that where this is going? Are you saying that you?
No, I'm saying you did because because of where you are at now, because there's other people we see in those waiting rooms that we're never going to see again. And we don't even know they left.
Yeah.
I mean, really, they're gone. Yeah. They might, hopefully, I mean, if they're listening to this, hey, come back, give it a shot, or don't, whatever. But they're sitting in their apartment in Ohio now.
We love Ohio.
They stopped here because they prioritized what I believe may be incorrectly. So the key, though, going back, is to not feel that because we're both going in the same thing and someone's going to leave with it, that you're necessarily my adversary. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because there's so much that goes into it. Like I could walk in there and legitimately out-act you, technically speaking, and they'll be like, that was great. But, we're going to go with the other guy. They're going to go with you because we like his shiny bald head. You're like, really? We're like, yeah, because the lead guy has hair exactly like yours. And that's not going to look good on camera. So,
yeah, but we don't know that. I think when but
we don't, and we do, right? We don't know why, but we know it can be anything. So we have to accept that. And I think we also have to accept we may have sucked. I think a problem with actors is we tell each other literally, and we tell ourselves, you know what? You went in there and you gave it your best, and now it's and now who knows why they didn't pick you, but you didn't. No, maybe you sucked. Or not sucked. Maybe you just didn't do very. We never go with that. That's always been my first thing. I'm like, I'm going to assume. I mean, take responsibility for yourself first.
Yeah.
If you're going through and you're not booking ever, maybe it's not because of your hair. Maybe it's you. Maybe you need to go do some reflection on what you're bringing in there from a craft standpoint. And I don't know if we maybe necessarily do, because we're very quick to say, it's not about the acting or whatever. It's about, your earlobes are long. Yeah. I was like, maybe you just stunk up the room. But anyway, to finish the point, I remember that when we did start talking, it's because we had a commercial audition together. And we went in there and it was very awkward-ish because we're both in there. We're IT techs and the director was sort of just lame. I don't know if he's lame. It was very interesting. It was given, I think you probably booked this thing, of course, because you booked it all. So it was never adversarial for me. I was just sitting there like, what am I doing here once I saw you there? Because I'm like, well, he's already got this job, so I should just go on to the next one.
You did not think that, Emerson. Get out of here.
Everybody thought that. Trust me, everybody thought. You walk in like, God, man, I thought I had a shot at this one. Oh man, the director was like, okay, when the stuff comes up on your screen and we were looking at a little laptop, I don't know if you remember this. It's so amazing. It's orgasmic. Let me see your O face. And we're just like, oh. Do you remember that direction?
No, I do not remember that.
Callback?
I don't remember this.
Absolutely. It was for like AT&T or something. And it's like, you just found out you got a free month of phone service and we were supposed to like, explode all over. It's like, oh, it's great. Oh, I could have saved so much money. And then they're like, all right, DaJuan, now you sit down and do it.
In front of everybody.
Switch off like, on our little like computer. And the director's like, this is great. And everyone else is the room's like, yeah, it's not bad. His O is good. So it's good. I never heard from them again. I assume that you got the job.
I think I did, actually.
Yeah, you think you did get it. I think we were the last two. I think we were like, it's just between you and me.
I think I did get it.
I'm like, oh, I hope he gets that one because I can't.
Because I can't do it.
I can't anymore.
That's funny. It's very funny to hear you say that, Emerson, because, here's what I hear from this right now. The stories that we make up, the narrative that we personally make up, in our heads is totally false, right?
It's just fake.
It's just fake. When I see, like, hearing you say, oh, everyone walks in, there's everybody. But when I saw you, I was kind of like, fuck, Emerson's going to get it. Like, look, great looking guy. Like, here he goes. Like, right. And it's one of those things. And you said something before about it being about the zero sum world, right? Yeah. About the zero sum. And I think the thing about that was so interesting is if you don't know what a zero sum is out there, look it up, Google it. It's a great term, but it's basically if I win, you lose, that whole thing. But the turning point for me that I don't remember the AT&T orgasmic commercial, but I remember it probably was in a commercial audition because I don't know if we saw, anyway, commercial audition, but I remember you walking up and just saying, hey, great job on Bosch. I remember you saying like something very, like, and I thought to myself, like, that was so amazing because not too many people have like who we've seen for years. And I felt like at that moment, something shift for me that like, I have been doing this all wrong. These people that God, the universe, source, energy, whatever you believe in, they have put you in. This person is in your life and you're thinking they're competition, but they're really your friend, right?
And that's why I was able to say that to you because that's where I was getting in life. Or maybe had gotten there a little. I'm just.
You got there earlier.
No, not necessarily. It's like, it's a process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just know that I wouldn't have been able to say that to someone that I directly compete with and didn't really know, a decade ago, right? 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been able, I feel like I'd be giving something away, because my first thought was, why didn't I have that job?
Wow.
So I walked into scenarios with, why didn't I book more? I don't know. Cause I walked into scenarios with senses of I don't know, what's the term I'm looking for? Like you can do all the prep you want. You can be totally ready to do some work. And then you walk into an audition room and you see other people and you recognize, there's Bob. He was on that TV show the other day that I read for, we both read for. And there's DaJuan, he was a good commercial and all this. And at that point, everything shifted. You now have this attitude of like, you've taken from me.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? That belongs to me. This attitude of entitlement, rather than seeing people like, oh my God, this is great. These people are working. Hopefully they work more, so they're not in here. So I could book the job, but I should be happy for them. But I feel entitled when I walk in here that I should have had that. That I look at you instead of thinking good work and thinking, I wonder what he did to book that. I wonder what his read was like. I'm curious of what they were looking for. I'm curious about the process. My initial thought was, how did he beat me?
Mm.
How did he beat me out of something I should have had?
Yeah.
And at that point, you shut down. You shut everything off. You shut off being open and available and vulnerable and interested. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't really want to know how you beat me because obviously I don't think you beat me. I think it was a fluke and something's just happening. You know what I'm saying? If I really thought you did this thing, I would come curious. I'm like, or I should have been. It was a very poor attitude and I regret it. It's one of the things that I don't know if I necessarily regret. It's a process, but I would say to younger actors who find themselves to be competitive and like I was, is to understand it's not a competition. It's a very, very long road. There's plenty on the table for everyone who comes prepared to eat. You know what I'm saying?
Whew, that's a big one. A lot of people didn't catch what you just said. Comes prepared to eat. Not just comes to eat. Not just comes to eat. Comes prepared to eat. I just want to make sure I saw that was a quick nugget you dropped down.
Because if you're not, then people will start taking your food or food that could have been for you. Because it was never yours. Nothing in this business is promised. You can be an amazing actor and you can prepare, you can do this, and you can never work. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can work a little. I do fundamentally think people work as much as they should, and we can talk about that. But people do work as much as they should. Mm-hmm. I think the people who work a lot should be working a lot, and the people who don't probably shouldn't, for better or worse. So, but cut me off, dude. We got so much to cover.
I love it. I love it.
I know we only have like
an
hour total, but I'm willing to go over to hit more things, and y'all can edit out what you like.
I love it. We'll edit that piece out. But here's what I'll say.
Well, I like that piece. Edit that piece out.
Listen, guys, he wants me to keep it all in. I think just to land this plane about the waiting room and the journey that I think also why I think this conversation is so important to other actors about competition, about when I stop seeing anything as competition, really. Right? Like really, the only competition I'm having is with myself. Like you're saying, if I'm not preparing or if I'm not doing what I know I need to be doing. So I can walk into that waiting room and I can be like, what's up, Emerson? I'm going to go in there and show them vanilla. You're going to go in there and show them strawberry. If they want whichever one they want, we're good. Right? Yeah. I want to come back to something, but what I want to say is it is a beautiful journey for me to see before the pandemic that I'm like, Emerson, do you want to come to my pilot season group? And be in my house and be in my space. And like, we're here, I'm just going to share and show that's the journey where we're like, hey, there's my Nemesis. And then all of a sudden we're like, hey, in my house. And I don't know if you remember this day, we were working on something. And I said to you, Emerson, this is probably better for you than it is for me. Why don't you go check this out? Do you remember that? Like I was an audition.
I do.
And I was like, and you looked at me like, there was like
I'm like, finally, you get it. Yes, they're all better for me.
They're all better for me. Oh, is that what you thought? There was a moment. Not thank you, but there was a moment of I saw you pause for a second. It was almost like I listen. I don't know what it was, but I was in a different place where I was just like, dude, he's probably better for this than me. And so why am I gonna? And it's not about. I want to be clear. Because I know you said something about did you stink up the room or all that stuff? It wasn't about, I didn't think I could get there. I just thought it was better for you. And it's like, I know my essence. I know what's going on. And I was like, I think you should try to get in for this. It's
a great place to be in life.
Yeah.
I feel totally comfortable doing something like that now. Like literally calling up friends and be like, hey, I'm going in to read for this thing. I think you need to get on it. I think it's really good for you. You know what I'm saying?
Do you remember that moment?
I read for something last night I thought would be better for you. Now, granted, it's dangerous for other actors to assume, too much because, casting directors, whatever. But there's some things that come across that you just know, like if we were in a waiting room, I wouldn't be surprised to see someone come in and read for this. I love reaching out to people about that. I'd reach out to you about it. I just assumed that you were already reading for it and more, because that's what happened when I came over to your house. I'm like, oh, I'm reading for that. Oh, I'm reading for that.
Oh,
well, what are those though? What's that? I don't. Oh, okay. 40-year-old black man. Oh yeah, that's not quite right for me. Okay. That's what
I think that was a big turning point. And I just want to say that was I feel so fortunate and blessed. Like I told you when you came over to my house, a couple of weeks ago, that, I am enjoying the cultivation of a new friendship, right? And that is a space I could not have seen a decade ago, because I believe whatever world, whatever the industry, I think they don't set us up to be just I don't want to say friends, but just to be work together. So
but I also think that we need to take personal responsibility. Like for me, I can also say I wasn't that curious about people who weren't, and I made a note on this. I wasn't that curious about people at that time who didn't have the exact same interest as me in life. So it wasn't just about acting, but it was like, if you didn't sort of like dress like me, or maybe wanted to do the same social activities in me or whatever, like what's your point? You know what I'm saying? If I can't initially get to you and add value in ways that at that point in time, I was determining what was valuable for a person, what's the point? You know what I'm saying? Like I said, zero sum game. Like I'm in it to win it. You're either adding value or you're detracting value, which is a terrible way to go through life. It's either a process that's going to help me, or it's a process that's getting in my way, which is a terrible way to go through life. And so I didn't make a lot of connections with a lot of actors in there, because once I added on the layer that you're potentially my competition, if I didn't look in the mirror and see myself or a version of myself that I would like to hang out with, then I was like, no. I was like, I ain't got time for it. I got a couple buddies here, gonna keep it close, gonna do our thing. No time for this. I'm shaking jive. I'm trying to, it was terrible. And one of the things I'd go back and change would be that. Just be like, just be a little more curious about the people around you, authentically curious. Don't have people open up to you as an experiment for yourself. Open up to people and have them open up to you if you're authentically curious about them and authentically interested in getting to know them. I wish I did a little more of that. I think, and this is a process, because we never fully change ourselves. We always carry a little whatever, and that's fine, because that little nugget reminds me that I need to continually improve. I thrive to be less resistant. Whenever I say no to something, I take a beat and ask myself if I know why I'm saying no. I think that has helped me in life. I think that has helped me in my acting career. I think that has helped me like in my mental health, everything. If someone's like, hey, we're going to go out to the park and have, no. Why? Because I don't know. I don't want to go to the park and have a picnic. Why not? Why are you saying no? You like these people. You like food. You like park. Why? Because it's just not something you do. Give it a shot. Be less resistant. Ask why you're saying no to things. Ask why you're saying no to people.
You have, it sounds like a hardcore mental game, mental structure, mindset piece that you've worked on a lot. It sounds like it just from listening to you talk. And I'm just wondering, what's your path? Because, this is a podcast about mindset too. Sure. Right? Like, what's that path that's gotten you there? Like, do you just do you meditate? Like, what is it? Tell me.
Well, I mean, listen, our bodies or everything is just a vessel for the mind. Okay. As soon as the mind goes, the body's useless. Once the body becomes useless, the mind will soon go after that. So we are brains surrounded by organs to keep that brain alive. As humans, you know what I'm saying? That's where we derive our value. I guess, how should I answer your question? Like, for me personally, I'm always trying to be a more interesting version of myself for myself than I used to be. I'm not trying to be more interesting for you. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to be like, well, I'm going to go do this thing, read this book, learn this language, climb this mountain, whatever. So when I go to a party, I have this better story to tell. I want to look back at myself 2 years from now and not be like, oh, that guy was pretty boring. Mm-hmm. I want to be interested in what that guy was doing. Does that make sense? Like, I want to look back and be like interested in what he was doing. I don't want to look back and see, oh, he was at a dinner and, then he had a hangover and then, he was in an audition. That's all great. I want to look back and see that he was really doing something interesting. I have screenshots of books, and I have screenshots of places I traveled, and screenshots of new people I've met or something like that, or pictures of that. Like, I don't want to bore myself, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. And
because if you're boring yourself, you better believe you're boring everyone around you.
Well, Emerson, you're nailed it, is what I want to say. You are not boring anybody around you, because every time I'm laughing at everyone, because every time I think of Emerson, he's on a beach somewhere, or he's traveling in Utah, or you're on a horse somewhere, like a
yes.
And I'm always
let me answer all those questions. I was on a horse in South Africa, in a desert in South Africa. I was on a beach in Mexico. I was on a mountain in Utah twice last year. All this happened in the last 12 to 18 months. It's kind of difficult with COVID. Like, what was 12 months ago? I don't know. I kind of lost the year. But in the last, let's say, year and a half, those things that you mentioned, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Well, you in my eyes, you seem very nomadic, right? Like not tied. And nomadic is such a strong word, but to someone who has like deep roots where I can't just get up and move, right. Like I'm like looking at your life. I'm like, how's Utah? How's Salt Lake? Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess the word I like to use is active.
Active.
It's active. It's I'm never one to lecture someone on how to live their life. Mm-hmm. If anyone asks me, I'm like, here's what I do. Mm-hmm. And if you want to know how I applied it to my life, I can give you that advice to someone. But I'm not super interested in telling people like, here's what you're doing wrong. Yeah. You don't. Yeah. You have no idea someone's journey. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? You could go to someone and be like, oh man, look at this person. They're eating too much of this portion of whatever, or look at all that candy. They're on the dessert that they have lined. You're doing this wrong. For all you know, that person had a major eating disorder for years, and they're finally getting through it. And all you did is step in there and ignorantly, because by ignorant, the definition, not knowing, having no education or experience with, ignorantly pushing that person back, or just being part of the problem that they've maybe worked their way through. So just I tell people, be very careful with telling them how to live their life, particularly if they don't ask you for advice. So I'd say active. I mean, the world is big, and it's one of those things that it's not as hard to do those things once you start doing them. Every step feels like a big step before you take a step, right?
Yeah. I would definitely, I can see that with like even buying houses. Like, do you know what I mean? Like I was saying, like as I'm buying, I'm like, the second one was
you got two of them now. I bet your first one, you're like, oh my God, are we going to do, I got to pay commitment right now. And now it's like,
cool. And I'm like,
you know what I'm saying? I mean,
it's like,
there you go.
So I get it.
You know what I mean?
I get that what you're saying, I don't want to run out of time because I really want to talk about your work, because you have been so gracious in saying that I work, but you work a lot. You are a working actor. I know you already own that and internalize that. You work a lot. And I've loved you on Last Ship. I love Last Ship, by the way. I don't know if you knew that. I used to love to watch it. I was in it. And
thank you for watching.
You know what I mean? It was just because I'm always like into the world. Like that's my thing anyway. And so that whole thing, and it was coming off of Grey's Anatomy was McDreamy or whatever. Anyway, so following him was anyway. Sorry, I just told too much.
Eric Dane. It's all right.
What was your journey there? Like, being upped on that show, because you worked on it. And I mean, we talked about it and you're like, go ahead, tell me.
Let me go back to something more. I'm sorry. So you asked for specific stuff like this, and I revert back to the philosophical. Like, you're like, tell me about the show. I'm like, let me tell you something philosophical, what you said before about working. I work all the time. It's all about perspective, right?
It really is.
I feel I don't work nearly enough.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps me up in life and in everything is, and this is not a plus, but I can scroll through old auditions and all I see are ones that I didn't get. Jobs that I'm like nowadays, so much self-tapes, right? And I keep all my self-tapes in a little folder called self-tape storage in my Google Drive.
Right.
And every time I add a self-tape, which is a couple times a week, it's right there to scroll.
Yeah.
A reminder of every audition that I did not get in the last, year and a half. And I didn't used to have that when we used to go in for auditions, because you walk in and the big thing was, when you walk out of the room, let it go, forget it. It's done. Move on with your life. And I got good at that. You could ask me, what'd you read for today? I'd be like, I don't know. Oh yeah. I read for this thing or whatever. But now it's like, all right, I'm done with the audition. I send it off, whatever. It's out of my life. And then I get another appointment and I record it. And I go to my self-tape storage and I upload it. And there it is again. It's like, hey, remember me, buddy? Yeah, DaJuan is working on me right now, not you. I'm going to be here to remind you of your suckiness forever, because you really can't delete me, because you don't know if they're going to say, hey, send it to us again, or if they're looking at it right now. So that's ridiculous, but that's what my auditions say to me. I'll see.
I want you to do the rest of the talk in that voice.
Hey. So you know what I'm saying? So I always feel like, man, I there's so much more work to be. I mean, that's all of us. I mean, yeah. I think the day you look at your stuff and you're like, yeah, I've done enough. It's fine. I'm working enough. It's probably the day you probably need to go find something else to do, because you're not as interested. But to answer your question, the process for the show was great. More technical. I was just hired to do a 3-episode arc. And a big thing everyone says when you go into a show is like, and they ask actors is, do you think they could bring you back? Could you go back for more? And I personally feel that's the wrong way to look at it, because now you're already stepping over and looking past what you're supposed to be doing in the moment.
Yeah.
The moment you're thinking about the next episode that you don't have, you're not thinking about the work you're supposed to be doing right now, which ironically is the thing that's going to generate that next episode. So many actors don't ever get like, hey, they didn't bring me back. I don't know why or whatever. I was hoping they'd bring me back and all that stuff. Because you were already there. You were already sitting at a door that didn't exist, waiting for them to open it. Except walking through the one, they sit there and open for you.
Yep.
So that's the way I looked at the things. I bring me back, whatever. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go, keep the ball rolling. Hope, nice to meet y'all. So just focus on the work and be open to the experience and be open to meeting the people there and developing relationships, and not doing the thing we used to do in the past, which was, you are my adversaries potentially, or you have something that I may want or could take something away from. No, man, I'm here to support you professionally, personally, whatever you need, whatever we need to do for us to both to be successful. And specifically when it comes to a project you're on, for this project to be successful, because it's not about me right now. It's about making this project successful. It's very big. There's a lot of people involved. Sure, they see 7 people on TV, but there are 70 behind me making this happen, who are trying to feed their families. And if you're sitting there messing up and potentially making this show so it doesn't, go another season or whatever, you're potentially taking food off these people's tables. Okay. So I came in there and I just did what I felt was my very best. And I feel I've done that. When I've done the work, I show up ready to work on set. And I remember very distinctly at the end of my 3rd episode, at that point, I'd realized that they'd written me into another one. Just a PA, like a base camp PA. And for anyone who doesn't know, that's someone who sits at base camp and makes sure that you're leaving your trailer and going to set, and just the coordinator between where the actors hang out and getting them to work and stuff like that. And sometimes work with background and things of that nature. Yeah. Said, hey, I'm like, hey, you know what? It's been really great working with you. I think I might be back for another episode. I'm not sure. She was like, it's been really great working with you. Everybody's saying how professional you are. And I'm like, that person could not have given me a higher compliment. Because that means different things in different places. But on an acting set, that means you showed up, you knew your lines, you were where you needed to be. No one knew how to look for you. And when that camera turned on, you did your thing.
Ready to go.
It means that whole thing. And for it to trickle down that low, for someone who literally sits outside trailers all day, to understand how people on set felt about me, highest compliment I could have maybe ever received in the business. I mean, ever. And it was from a said PA who'd maybe been in the business for anywhere from, from 2 days to 2 years. So that's what I strive to do. Mm-hmm. And if by doing that, someone decides I'd really love for this person to come back and work for me again, then mission accomplished, right? That figured itself out. Now there is that door, that other door that I wanted, that, people were waiting by. No, you're waiting in the wrong place. It's over here. And I'm gonna go ahead and walk through it. Mm-hmm. That happened on the last ship. So I came back for another season. And halfway through, they upped me to series regular. They didn't have to, but they wanted to make sure that I did not go somewhere else during pilot season. That I did not take it. They're like, we want this guy. We don't even want to talk about it. I already had a deal for 2 more seasons. They decided to cancel that final season deal of a guaranteed recurring deal and make it a series regular deal. They're like, what? We're not paying you enough. Because I told them pilot season's coming and I'm just going to make myself available, just let y'all know. And they decided that's not acceptable for us. That was the next compliment. I'm like, then I'm doing the right thing.
Yes.
Showing up ready to work. That happened on that show. It happened on MacGyver as well. I was hired for 1 episode. I make it the most important thing in my life, to come in and do the very best I can for these people who put their faith and trust in me. And I was on for 4 seasons or 3 seasons. I did episode or 2 each season, but they kept thinking, let's bring this guy back and put him in another. Let's bring this guy back and put him in another. They didn't have to. It had nothing to do with my character. I mean, it eventually did. They created a storyline that we were these really great buddies, but lead the show always has buddies, right? This is someone that became an important buddy because the choice the writers and the showrunner made. That is the biggest compliment you can ever get in this business, because it's an active compliment. Yeah. Where they're like, oh, a casting director bringing you back that's great. And you hope they're really bringing you back and not just you look right for the part and you have a good agent and all that stuff. But when a show's like, we want to bring this character back, man, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah. Emerson, you touched on so many beautiful things. And I think one of the things that stood out to me is, I often get asked about being upped on Bosch. And I didn't think on episode 1 or the pilot episode that this would be this. But what I thought about was in that moment, I didn't go on to that set. I've talked about this on many podcasts. I didn't go on to that set like I'm a co-star. I went on that set like I'm going to give my best performance, with the number 1 ever. Yeah. And I'm not going to be like, well, I'm going to be meek. No, I'm going to go in there. I'm not going to steal focus or anything like that. I'm going to do my job. And I got asked that about Grey's Anatomy when we were like, oh, did you know you're going to put this up to try to get an Emmy nomination? No, all I wanted to do was be Garrett in that moment, whose wife was in the hospital. I wasn't like, let me cry my ass off so that I can go put this up for an Emmy nomination. That wasn't in my mind. This is so I think let's make sure we highlight that. We highlight that, man. Emerson, you are so fun to talk to, man. You're so fun to talk to. I'm gonna get you back on here because I have so many questions to ask you.
Is that it? Are we done?
That's it. I gotta go.
Man, I feel like we're just getting started.
We were just getting deep. We were
just warming into it. Yeah.
And I feel like you have so much more to tell me, but I want you to leave us with this last question. What would Emerson say right now to the younger Emerson?
Yeah. From what perspective? This is an acting thing. So I guess from an acting perspective.
Mm-hmm. From an actor.
Run while you still can. Get out of here. Quit.
Doesn't believe that. I don't know. You seriously?
No, listen. No, I'm serious.
Oh, really? Really.
And if my younger self said to my older self, having seen it all, no, I'm still going to stay and do it. Well, then I know that I made the right choice. But study. I'd say study the craft. What I would go to my younger self and say, remember that this is a business of acting. So try to study business, but also study the craft of acting. Like,
so much.
You really need to be a good actor. Mm-hmm. You really need to know what you're doing. Listen, if you're like a 10 and really good looking and can remember a sentence or two on a piece of paper and string that out of your mouth and, I don't know, hire Camille Chin to tell you where to put the right choices, you're going to work in this town. we're on camera. You know what I'm saying? You might be on something that no one will ever watch or 8-year-olds watch or something, but whatever, that pays the bills. So those people are always going to have an advantage. But better looking people are, it's just genetic. We're always going to have an advantage. As soon as they walk into the room, people are curious about them first, right? It's just the nature of human beings. It is the nature of this building. So the best thing we can do for ourselves is study the craft. So people stop looking at them and start watching you. You know what I'm saying? They're like, whoa, like that's shiny, but this is deep.
Yeah.
But at the same time, execute what you learn your way. Like, so we are very quick to tell people this isn't how you do something when it comes to performing or being on camera or auditioning or whatever. Says who? Who says I can't? They're like, oh, well, at the end of the scene, stay there because it's stronger. Says who? I'm willing to bet most of the times we hear things like that, someone's just repeating what they've been told.
Yep.
Why? Let me be motivated to do it my way. Let me discover that for myself. Now you got to listen to people and be like, well, there's a reason he's telling me that, or she's telling me that. They have experience. Let me filter that through. But if the opportunity comes along, saying an audition you're doing, we're like, no, I think I need to walk off, and I'm not going to stick to the dogma how this should be done. I'm going to walk out of this motherfucker, then walk out the motherfucker. Because that walk off might be the thing that makes the difference. That might be the choice that differentiates you and the other 80 tapes you just watched. So study your craft, understand what you're doing. So when you break the rules, you know you're actually breaking the rule and why you're breaking, right? Be nice to everyone you meet.
Everyone.
Understand that when people aren't nice to you, when it's general, it has nothing to do with you. It's 99% of the time, it's about them.
Yeah.
When you say hi to someone and they're like, you know, screw you, they're like, our first thought is like, why don't they like me? Is it my face? It's usually, you know, your first thought is, I'm sorry that person's having a bad day.
Yeah.
Let me try again, or something like that. So remember that and just continually be nice. And if you find maybe in life that most people you meet are negative towards you, maybe you need to do some personal inventory, because it is about you after all. So that's also, I assume if something goes wrong, blame yourself first, and then you take responsibility, and then enjoy. And frankly, and I can say this now that I'm a little older, enjoy yourself, because this ride is going to end sooner than you expect. And everybody's like, oh, you're young. I'm like, yes. But life is stages. I can't do the same things I did when I was 20. Yeah. Like, you have your 20-year-old stage where your mindset's a certain way, your energy's a certain way, things you want to do a certain way. That's going to change. There's going to be like 30s. It's going to be different than your 40, whatever. Life is long and kind of infinite, because you're born one day, you don't remember the day you were born, and then you're dead and you're not going to remember the day you die. So it's sort of this nebulous space. But the things that do matter are the spaces in between.
Yeah.
Remember that. Don't put stuff off, because you're going to feel differently about it in 5 years.
Yeah. I love that. Man. Emerson, come back and see us, man.
Anytime.
All right.
Anytime. Yeah.
Anytime.